Hello, welcome. This is going to be lesson B16, quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is a formula that we can use to solve quadratic equations that fall into this format, where there is a number in front of the x squared, which we're going to call a letter a number in front of the x, and a number without x. And it's very important that the quadratic equations be equal 0 in order to be able to use this quadratic formula. Okay, so here's an example where we're going to show you how to solve this quadratic equation by using the quadratic formula. So basically, it's very important that the equation be equals to 0, which is great because this equation is already equals to 0. We identify A, B, and C, and now all we have to do is plug it into the formula. The formula starts with a negative, followed by the B, then positive negative square root of b squared, which in this case is 9, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 10, divided by 2a, in this case 2 times 2. So as you can see, it's very important that you identify a, b, and c. That way you plug it into the proper place. Once you have done this, then basically it's just adding, subtracting, and multiplying, doing exponents, multiplication, and adding, subtracting. Okay, so basically following order of operations. But basically here I copy the negative 9, positive negative. 9 squared is 81. Negative 4 times 2 times 10 is negative 80. 2 times 2 on the bottom equals 4. 81 minus 80 is square root of 1. And square root of 1 is a perfect square, which equals 1. So basically we get this. Now what we're going to do now is split the answer, because as you can see you have positive and negative here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have two answers. We usually call this x prime or x double prime. Basically what it means is answer number 1, answer number 2. So basically the answer number 1, we're going to follow the positive route. Basically we're going to copy everything here, but with just the positive here. And then the other answer, we're going to do the negative route, which basically we just copy everything and we just put a negative there. So now negative 9 plus 1 equals negative 8. Negative 8 divided by 4 equals negative 2. Here is negative 9 minus 1 equals negative 10. Divided by 4 is negative. We can reduce it to negative 5 over 2. So this will be my answers for my quadratic equation. Okay. Now you may recall that we solved this kind of problems before using factoring. Here's an example that I did in class just to illustrate that this problem can also be solved by factoring. Okay. Now, so why do we need to have quadratic formula? Well, because sometimes it's easier to do by factoring, but sometimes quadratic formula will be helpful. And in a situation like this, you have a choice. You can use either one. But on the next few examples, we're going to show you that quadratic formula is the best option, because quadratic formula is best when the answers are not so nice as we had here. Okay, so let's take a look at another example here. Okay, we're going to start out with letter B, where we have 2x squared minus 6x equals 1. First order of business is to make sure that one side of the equation equals 0. So that means I'm going to send the 1 to the other side. It's also very important to put the 1 in the right place. Remember, 2x squared minus 6x, the 1 would come right at the end. Okay, so it's very important that you put the numbers in the right order, because you want to identify A, B, and C. And if you switch one of the two, you're going to get in trouble. Okay, so basically I line them up and identify A, B, and C. And now I use the formula. The formula starts with a negative, and then I follow by the B. And notice here that I have two negatives. One comes from the formula, and one comes when I plug it in the B. Positive, negative, square root, and here I put negative 6. Please remember that you put parentheses. Okay, negative 4 times 2 times negative 1 divided by 2 times 2. Okay, so basically I just plug it in the numbers into the formula. Now it's very important, extremely important, that you pay attention to your signs. Negative negative becomes a positive. Negative 6 squared, because negative 6 inside a parenthesis, the negative will disappear. A lot of students make that mistake and put a negative there, so please be careful. Negative 4 times 2 times negative 1. A negative times a negative becomes a positive. Again, the signs are very, very, very important here. 4 times 2 times 1 is 8. 36 plus 8 is 44. Alright, now 44 is not a perfect square, and that's where the power of the quadratic formula comes in. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root and write it here on the sign. We're going to do the prime factorization as we learned in class. 44 gives us 2 and 22, 2 times 11. So we can rewrite this as 2 to the second times 11. 2 to the second will come out as 2 to the first times square root of 11. So then basically we're going to take this information here, and instead of writing square root of 44, we're going to replace it with 2 square root of 11. So if you notice here, basically here I have square root of 44, and now I rewrote it, and instead of square root of 44 I substituted with 2 square root of 11. Now we learned before that we cannot add these two numbers because this guy does not have square root of 11 and this guy has. So basically there's nothing I can do there other than I noticed that 2 goes into 6, 2 goes into 2, and 2 goes into 4. So basically what I can do is reduce these numbers since 2 goes into all 3 of them. So 3 divided by 2 gives me 3. 2 divided by 2 gives me a 1, which I choose to leave invisible. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. So basically I reduce this result into 3 positive or negative square root of 11 divided by 2. Okay? And this kind of problem will be kind of hard to do by factoring. Okay? But as you can see now with quadratic formula it's much easier to do it. Alright, so let's go on to the next problem. Here I have x equals 4x squared minus 4. Basically I decided to move both of these guys to the other side because I don't like this negative, so by moving here this will become a positive. And remember, the x squared we want at the very front, and the number without x we want at the very end. It's very important that you put them in the right order. Okay, once they are in the right order, identify A, B, and C, plug it into the formula. Be careful with the signs. Okay, as you plug it in, we have 1 minus 64. What is 1 minus 64? Negative 63. Is 63 a perfect square? No, it's not. So we're going to move this over here to the side. We're going to do the prime factorization. And then we write the prime factorization inside our radical, and we decide to, and we look for what can we remove. We can remove the negative. We can remove the 3 squared, but the 7 cannot come out. The negative comes out as I. The 3 squared comes out as 3 to the first, and the 7 stays in the radical. So now instead of writing this, I can rewrite using 3i plus 7. Okay, once I rewrote it, I look if I can reduce these 3 numbers, and the answer is no, I cannot reduce these 3 numbers, so therefore my answer stays like that. Okay? Alright, very well. Let's go on to the next example. The next example has to do with word problems using quadratic formula. So here's an example where a boy throws a rock upward from the top of a 100 feet cliff with a velocity of 12 feet per second. The height h in feet of the object after t seconds is ht equals negative 16t squared plus 12t plus 100. Find how long does it take for the rock to hit the ground. So basically here is a little diagram that I drew to illustrate this problem. There's a boy here up on the cliff, and he's going to throw a rock upward. So it's going to go up, and everything that goes up needs to go down, so it's going to come down. And the question is, when will the rock hit the ground? And this path of the rock is described by this equation. Okay, this is an equation often used in physics to describe the motion of objects. Okay, basically, this is not really important for our class, but just to let you know that this equation is very useful, and if you take physics class, you're probably going to use it. Basically, this is describing the initial distance. So if you notice, the rock was being thrown from 100 feet high. This was the initial velocity. The velocity of the rock going up is 12 feet per second. And this tends to be the acceleration of gravity that pulls things down to the earth. So this would be a negative force. So in other words, going up is a positive force, going down is a negative force. Okay? But anyway, that's not important, just letting you know that's what it means. And to me, it's pretty cool, okay, that math can be used to describe a real life situation here. Alright, but in any case, this equation is representing the height of the rock at different times, okay? So the problem asks us to find how long will it take for the rock to hit the ground. Well, when it hits the ground, what will be the height of the rock? Well, the rock will be at 0 feet. So basically, right here at this equation, I can plug it in as 0, because I want to find out the time when the rock hits the ground, described by 0. Okay, so basically we have a quadratic equation in which we can use the quadratic formula. So basically what I did is identify A, B, and C, and I plug it into the formula. And just be careful with the signs, okay? And basically when I added 144 plus 6400, it's going to be 6544. And these kind of problems, the word problems, we are going to use the calculator. So go ahead and use the calculator to find the square root of 6544, which in this case gave us 80.9. And you can go ahead and round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so negative 12 plus 80.9 divided by negative 32. I'm going to split into two answers. One is going to be the positive route, and one is going to be the negative route. When we did the positive route, we got 68.9 divided by negative 3, which is negative 2.15. Well, this answer is not valid because we're talking about time after the boy threw the rock. So that means this answer is not valid because according to our story here, the boy threw the rock, the rock went up and then came down, so time would be a positive number. Well, on the second answer, we got negative 92.9 divided by 32, and we got a positive answer, which is 2.9. So in other words, how long does it take for the rock to hit the ground? 2.9 seconds. Okay? And that's how we use quadratic formula to solve problems like this. Okay? After we did this problem, we did this practice problem together also. And this is talking about a similar event to example number 1. And I'm going to go ahead and read the problem for you. A toy rocket is shot upward at the edge of a building 45 feet high with an initial velocity of 20 feet per second. The height in h in feet of the rocket after t seconds is h of t equals negative 16t squared plus 20t plus 45. How long after the rocket is launched will it be at a height of 5 feet? Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a second. Okay, so basically here I drew my diagram. Here's a building of 45 feet. There's a boy here or somebody here launching this toy rocket that's going to go up and then it's going to come down. And the question is, how long will it take to hit like a height of 5 feet? Okay, and hopefully it's not going to hit this little boy here. Okay, but anyway, here's the equation that was used. Okay, and basically we're going to substitute the height by 5 because now we want to find out how long will it take to reach a height of 5. So in other words, how long does this boy has to get out of the way before the rocket can hit him? Okay, so basically we have this equation, we plug it in the height for 5, and because now to be able to use quadratic formula you have to have a 0, we're going to move the 5 to the other side, and when we move the 5 to the other side, the 45 minus 5 becomes a 40. Once we have that, we just use the quadratic formula. This is A, this is B, this is C. Plug it into the formula just as the formula says, and use the calculator to find out what 2960 is. We found out to be 54.4, and basically we got two answers. One answer was negative, so we know it's not valid. The other answer is positive, so we know that that's our answer. Okay, sorry, I kind of covered the answer there. And also we round our answers to the nearest 10, so we would round it to 2.3. Alright, very well. So this would be assignment B16. These are the problems that you're going to use. It's only 4 problems out of the textbook, and also problem 93 of the final exam review, which is uses quadratic formula. Okay. Also, there is an assignment for the quadratic formula, which is this handout. So please make sure that you do this handout right here. Okay. The problems are right here. 8 problems using quadratic formula, and the answers are right here. Okay. So this is assignment B16. Problems out of the book, 1 problem of the final exam review, and this little handout that you can print it out, or you can just look from the screen. Alright, this concludes the lesson, B16, quadratic formula. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that you were able to understand everything, and thank you again. Have a great day. Bye.